What's up, guys? It's Ryan from Tower Reviews, and today I'm going to be comparing the iPod Touch 5th generation to the iPhone 5, which is the 6th generation iPhone. So we're just going to be covering some hardware differences and showing you all the differences in hardware features, and then diving into the software and showing you how the iPod Touch's A5 performs against the iPhone 5's A6 processor. Also, the iPhone 5 has 1 GB of RAM, while the iPod Touch only has 512 megabytes of RAM. So we're going to compare these two and see how they differ with those specs. So we have about the same amount of stuff on each device. Neither are jailbroken, so it should be a pretty accurate test. So let's get the brightness up on this one. So let's put them both half. So far I cannot really distinguish a difference between these displays. It might appear different on camera just because the app layout is different, and also the iPod Touch has a white bezel. But past iterations of these devices, they've always made the iPhone's display a little bit nicer just to put a difference between the two devices, so you wouldn't say, oh, I'll just get an Android phone and an iPod Touch. You'd rather go with the iPhone because it was always better. But here, they really didn't skimp out in any way on the iPod Touch's screen. Viewing angles are about the same on each. Color reproduction, everything seems to be the same. And obviously the pixel density and resolution is the same. So very impressed with the iPod Touch's display. So if we take a look around the outside of the devices here, we'll notice that they look very similar in design, more similar than any iPod Touch and iPhone has before. The backs are made out of the same material, that matte metal finish that Apple seems to be putting on their devices these days. Obviously a color difference. I'm sure that if I got the black and slate model of the iPod Touch, you would almost not be able to distinguish them from a distance, but obviously here you would be able to. So we got the cameras right there, 5 megapixel on the iPod Touch, 8 megapixel on the iPhone. Both have LED flash. One difference with the iPod Touch is that the camera is actually raised up, I guess because of how thin the iPod Touch is that they couldn't fit it in there. You can see right there pretty good that it's raised up, which is somewhat of a problem because if you set it down, the lens is the thing that's going to be taking the brunt of the hit, so that's somewhat of a problem. LED flash on both, which is a nice addition to the iPod Touch. Definitely makes higher quality photos in low light. So they dropped the gigabyte markings on the iPod Touch, which again makes it look similar, more similar to the iPhone, which doesn't have gigabyte markings obviously. Got the iPod logo, and obviously just the Apple logo on the iPhone. On the right side of the iPhone 5, we have the micro or nano slim SIM slot, which doesn't apply to me because I have Verizon, of course, and nothing on the iPod Touch. On the front of the devices, we have the speaker grill for making phone calls on the iPod or the iPhone with the 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera, HD FaceTime camera. We also have the HD FaceTime camera there on the iPod Touch, which is alone, not accompanied by a speaker grill, because obviously you're not going to be making phone calls on this device. We've got, on the bottom of the devices, we've got the lightning connector, and on the iPhone we have the microphone and speaker grill for making phone calls, and the speaker grill for not making phone calls for other uses. And we also have the 5-hole speaker grill here on the iPod Touch, and the 3.5mm headphone jack on both. So from a dimension standpoint, you can see that the iPod Touch is significantly thinner, and considering that this is the thinnest iPhone ever, that's pretty impressive. Feels like nothing in the hand. They're both very light. Just from a feel, the iPhone feels a bit heavier, which would make sense because it has more in it and it's thicker. So on the left side of each device you have volume rockers, and then above the volume rocker on the iPhone you have the mute switch, which does not exist on the iPod, which would be a nice and welcome feature, but can't always get what you want, I guess. The iPod Touch 5 has the loop button down here. Just press it, it pops out, and you can attach a lanyard, which is actually a very welcome feature. It works pretty well. It's nice to just know that you're not going to be dropping your iPod, especially in times if you're taking pictures near water or something. So that's about it for the hardware, other than the internals, which I already mentioned earlier in the video. So we're just going to get into the software and see how they perform against each other. The first thing I want to do is power them down. Looks like the iPod Touch 5th generation powered down well ahead of the iPhone 5, which is still in the process of powering down. Alright, we're off to the races. My guess is that the iPhone 5 should be faster in almost every aspect, as it almost doubles the iPhone 5's performance in benchmark tests. Yep, so just as suspected, iPhone 5 is up a few seconds faster. So first, let's clear out the multitasking, clear history, and clear cookies and data, just to make it as fair as possible. Alright, so they're both pretty close, but the iPhone 5 looks to have a slight edge. Now let's load up my most recent video. Yo guys, what's up? It's Ryan here from Tower Reviews, and today I'm going to be unboxing the new iPod. Okay, so the iPhone 5 was done a little bit faster. Let's scroll around and see how each processor handles. No problem with either, as expected. So again, the iPhone 5 had the edge, although it hasn't loaded up that app yet, which is kind of weird. There we go. So as you can see there, the iPhone 5 was significantly faster. And it's much faster on the iPhone 5. Once again. Okay, now let's open up the camera app, which is probably something that most people are going to care about because you want to be able to get your camera out quickly in case there is a good picture opportunity. So let's click on the cameras. There we go, the iPhone 5 was a bit faster. And let's see which one is faster at taking photos. Alright, so you can take pictures basically as fast as you want, as fast as your finger can move with the iPhone 5. With the iPod Touch, there's a slight slowdown. Let's turn on HDR and see how that is. Alright, so the iPhone 5 was a little bit faster. Both have the panorama feature here. And all other features are pretty much the same. What's the weather looking like tomorrow?
Nice weather coming up tomorrow. Up to 64 degrees and sunny.
Alright, so the iPhone 5 looks to have a slight millisecond lead on the iPod Touch 5 there, but really no big difference. So that about sums up this video, comparing the iPhone 5 to the iPod Touch 5. One of the best yet by far. Definitely closed the gap between the iPhone and the iPod Touch.